me about maritime area. Long time ago, agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head and the billies and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. This a fi we, we da fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. Follow me now. This a fi we da fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This time me, my name is Pupa. Belize me come from the Belize City area. 110% Belize and proud of it, sir. Don't tell me about maritime area. Long time ago agreement by the slave master. Talking about the head and the Belize and dollar because patriots. All people who love them country bad love them homeland. Will never give it up to another nation. This a fi we da fi.
Greetings and welcome to Crime Sunday Review. Jada, I'm not okay. I'll just trust the process. Yes, welcome to Crime Sunday Review. I'm the producer and host of Belize's only news review talk show. This is the CSL show, yourself be yourself station. So I'm bragging. We're simulcasting on our sister station, Crime Radio, and simulcasting on Crime Television Facebook page. And this is the third edition of Sunday Review for the Gregorian calendar cycle, aka 2023. Before I introduce our guest, Powerhouse Conversation, I'm gonna get on a pen and paper. You may want to listen to this conversation over and over until you get it. But it's very important that you go and there's an article I would like for you to go and read by Uneven Earth. The author of that article, which was done almost exactly a year ago today, the 25th of January 2021. The author is Kendall Dix, and I'll introduce Kendall. And now I know that one of the people who edited that article is also our guest today, Vijay Kolinjivadi. If I pronounce her name wrong, Vijay, please let me know. And so I want you all to go ahead and read that article, but time is of essence and I want to get them to share as much as possible. So let me introduce Vijay, and then Vijay, after Vijay, Vijay can introduce Kendall because I saw I get Kendall because of Vijay. So welcome to Sunday Review. The conversation is going to be about blue neocolonialism on that article that Kendall wrote about a year ago as it relates to the blue bond in the Seychelles. Vijay, tell me about you. I know you're a researcher and you're a writer. Tell us a little bit about yourself and then introduce Kendall, please.
Thank you so much, YaYa, for this wonderful introduction. And it's really a pleasure to be here and to share some insights and also, some strategies to think about what all of this means for people in Belize and what do we do about this, these ideas of blue bonds and everything that's being promoted now. I am a researcher. I'm a settler, currently located in Tiohtià:ke, also known as Montreal, Canada, and home of the Kanien'kehá:ka Nation. I am also a researcher based at the University of Antwerp at the Institute of Development Policy, where I'm doing postdoctoral research. My focus is looking at the green economy, so looking at the impacts, the social and especially the social and cultural impacts that are caused by financializing nature, by creating new commodified or products for services, goods and services for nature, that they themselves have social impacts that are very problematic and that reproduce possibly injustices and that they need to be documented in their specific context where they're occurring. So my research is to understand this links between what is it that we are trying to do with these programs that are trying to be more ecological and the contradictions, the ecological contradictions of their effects, especially when they reproduce the same sort of system. So I'm very, very happy to share some thoughts, and especially with the new Blue Bonds deal in Belize. So I pass it to Kendall, who, yes, I had the pleasure of editing his piece for Uneven Earth as a co-editor there 2 years ago.
Yeah, thanks, Vijay, and it's good to see you again. It's been a while, and thank you, YaYa, for having me on. I'm always pleasantly surprised when I find out that anyone has read anything that I've written since a lot of the stuff like bonds. You know, you think who's gonna be interested in this stuff, but I am the National Policy Director for Taproot Earth. I'm based on Monacan territory, which is also known as the area outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. Taproot Earth is a now global climate justice organization that is really headquartered in the U.S. South. We used to be called Gulf Coast Center for Law and Policy. We were founded by Colette Pichon Battle after Hurricane Katrina. And really what our organization does is try to organize people of color and people in the South around climate justice, which means not just addressing climate change, but getting it to some of the root causes, which we would consider to be racial capitalism, domination over nature, and a lot of the things that I'm sure that we're going to talk about today. I'm also a former chef. My first environmental job was in organizing fishermen and chefs around sustainable fisheries. So anything related to fishing is sort of near and dear to my heart. And I wrote this piece when I was at Vermont Law School getting a degree in food and agriculture policy. And we had somebody from the Seychelles come and talk to us about this deal, and we'll get into it more. But when I was hearing about the quote win-win nature of these new financing arrangements, a lot of alarm bells were going off, and so I really wanted to dig in further. And the piece that hopefully a couple people will read really sort of gets into that, and really I think tries to examine it through the lens of the power dynamics. And I think that that's really sort of at the crux of why I think everyone should be taking a really hard look at whether these deals are really win-win for the people in the countries where they're being instituted. And yeah, thanks again for having me on.
Thanks, Kendall. This is absolutely important because 26 months later, since Belize entered this agreement, the government of Belize are supposed to be representing the interests of Belizean people. There's been no national awareness campaign about the Blue Bond, any meaningful conversation. There's been no pushback about it in any meaningful way. So let me ask both of you, before we jump off into like the definitions that will be used during this conversation, what has been both of your experiences with states engaging people prior to signing agreements like these? Because they would say there's a consultation, they have a limited amount of time, they just want to tell you what they're going to do. There was no awareness campaign before the conversation started. What has been your experience in different communities when it comes to states signing off on agreements like this? Vijay and Kendall.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think my initial response or reaction to that is there's this idea of expertise. It's almost like there's some mysticism around some of these programs, that they are meant to be, they are financial agreements, that they are arrangements that are driven by government officials and their creditors, and so they don't necessarily they are beyond the expertise of ordinary people. You know, if you read even how the government of Belize had made a call or announced in November of 2021 about the Blue Bond initiative, the people who are invited into these spaces, I think it was the Radisson Hotel or something, it was directed towards NGOs. And if you read even the Nature Conservancy, how the organizations that are behind some of these programs, how and who they invite and who they want to engage in the conversation tends to be other organizations like them or the government or private sector actors. You don't see, when we talk about consultation or community engagement, who are we actually talking about there? Are we talking about other so-called, these people who are all part of the same group in a way? They're talking the same language. We don't know, we don't actually have this ground level conversations that are happening, and it's assumed that through representation that these people are representing who they are supposed to represent, but there's absolutely no evidence of that. That's the first initial, I think this is a very common strategy that's used, and it's something that you see across all scales in different places.
And
Yeah.
it's not effective and it's not authentic because the Belizean people who will have to pay back this loan, we have no idea what this agreement is about. So I would really want to hear if there's another way that if you've experienced community engagement in a different way. Talk with us, Kendall.
Yeah, and to sort of build on what Vijay said as well, is I think that what we're really sort of talking about here, and I think what you're getting at, YaYa, is that this is a democracy problem, and that what we're talking about is a government borrowing money and sort of who has the say over it. You know, sometimes there is an electoral process where for people to approve a bond. In other cases, maybe it's just a group of elected officials. So the first time I encountered this was when I really learned about what bonds were. I was nearly 40 years old, you know, and I'm among the more sort of educated segment of the United States. And it took me a long time to even figure out exactly what a bond was and what we were talking about, even though I'd heard the term, you know, probably, you know, a lot in my life. I didn't really sort of understand exactly what a bond was. And so for anyone to sort of have any meaningful engagement of this process, first you sort of have to understand that how the financing works. And then you sort of have to rely on the information that's coming from the banks or the governments who are involved who want to do this stuff, communicating that honestly about what the real intentions are, you know, what the terms are, what could happen if you don't pay it back, because a lot of times the assumption is that everything is just going to go perfectly smoothly. And so that right now, that's, I would say, not a great process, not in the United States. I don't know as much about the Belizean context, but I think our democratic system is really not great at communicating information, and it's not great at collecting what people actually want. And so, you know, our organization, Taproot Earth, really focuses on collective decision making that is truly democratic. And I think so. We have for this formation called Gulf South for a Green New Deal, which is nearly 400 organizations working across the Gulf South, which is from Texas to Florida. If people are familiar with United States geography, that's, you know, in the southeast on the Gulf of Mexico. And when people are making financial decisions, you know, we have a community controlled fund. And so money does not get spent until the group, you know, comes together to sort of approve how this money is going to be spent. But you can't do that without a deep educational sort of process on you know, how it's going to be spent, what's it going to be spent on, and things like that. And so we're hopefully trying to model a better form of democracy, but it is really slow, and it's a lot of hard work. But hopefully, you know, in some way, maybe that's also what we're trying to do here today, is start by democratizing that information a little bit.
Definitely summed up what it was that I was getting at. It is not a democratic process. And even when we use the word democracy, it's not genuine democracy, even though that is used over and over again. I'm getting the article ready for Jada to show next. Let us go to the definition of words. That was a good jump off, Kendall, talking about bonds, what financialization is, what debt relief is, what conservation financing means. Share some of the key words that will come up in our conversation that you could simplify for us, Vijay and Kendall.
Maybe just one thing to add to say, in addition to the democracy aspect, I think one thing that happens through this kind of crisis of representation. So these people who are supposed to represent the people, what they do often is, without giving the details of what it actually implies, there's a lot of spin. There's a lot of other nice language that it makes it here. So you have a lot of branding. It's almost like the language that has to be created in these media launches, and it has to be done in a way that that makes people feel that this is a good thing. You know, it doesn't matter about the details. They have to know or feel. You know, so when you use the word debt relief, it sounds like, okay, well, debt is going away. Debt is going. You don't ask the question that some of these other deeper questions. Why does the debt even? Why do we even have the debt in the first place? Are we not, you know, could we not be replacing debt relief with more debt? Like, we don't know. We only hear debt relief. You know, that's even if we are able to enter into the to understand, to try to understand what's actually going on. We are only hearing words like that. We only hear words like, you know, nature protection. We hear these words that are very soft in a way. They help us, they make us think, well, surely that can't be a bad thing. You know, everybody loves nature. We need to protect nature. It's our Mother Earth. Of course, I'm supporting this. The government is doing this, you know. So you have it's branding. It's a form of manipulation in the use of words that make people feel that something is good. So how they feel rather than what they know. You know, how to know about the details of it. So I yeah.
Well, Vijay, I just want to say, I think that's like a really excellent place to start out, which is sort of like the question about how does debt sort of accumulate in a nation, and I think we can get into that more. But one of the big words that you use there that I think we do a really terrible job of defining sometimes is nature, because I think that's also sort of at the heart of this. Because I think in the West we tend to think of human beings and nature as these sort of separate sort of forces. You know, we have areas designed for people to sort of do whatever they want, whether that means, you know, extraction or the built environment and things like that. And then we have this idea of conserving nature, and nature being this sort of place without people, which I think is sort of key to understanding how this continent was colonized too. For us, you know, as descendants of Europeans, you know, the Europeans came in here and basically had to clear out the continent of all the people that were there, and then sort of pretend like that it was this empty place for us to come do with it sort of what we will. And then I think that dynamic just sort of gets reproduced over and over again through the conservation movement. So you create these national parks, and then you make sure that the people who are actually using it sustainably for millennia no longer have access to the place. And nature itself becomes a museum to go visit on vacation, rather than something that you're a part of and that you're an active participant in either caring for or cultivating or really anything else that happens. So yeah, I think nature itself is sort of can be a very interesting and contested word when you're talking about something like blue bonds.
When you said that, what came to mind as well is that oftentimes this is a Western mindset primarily. This is a European singular narrative about domination, primarily of indigenous and African descendant people. So when you look at this capitalist model, when our African ancestors were kidnapped, trafficked, that was to build an economic system based on exploitation and extraction, which has continued with this conversation we've had today uninterrupted. And so these financial agreements their tentacles are being definitely embedded globally, and people, primarily indigenous and African descendant, lives are forever changed in a bad way. So I really value what I saw, the blue neocolonialism. I'm like, yes, this is my kind of conversation for sure. And as a European descendant, I applaud your courage to speak this publicly, because that matters as well. That seldom happens from my experience. And so tell us some more. And I like that you picked up on Vijay's word of nature. So tell us about some of the other definitions. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to show I just found these people and I just think they're badass. They call it Committee for the Abolition of Illegitimate Debt. And they went to that gathering in Montreal, Canada, and Vijay could tell us some more about that. And the indigenous people are pushing back on that 30 by 30 initiative, and Vijay and Kendall can tell us what that is about as well. But in their 15-point position, they made it clear how undemocratic it was, the secrecy that agreements like Belize Blue Bond is clouded in. So share with us some more definitions, and then we'll have to go and look at that article and talk about how dangerous it is. And then I'll show the evidence that TNC themselves say, yes, we had to keep it a secret. So share some more the definition of words that will be meaningful in this conversation, Vijay and Kendall. You're doing good so far. Thanks.
I think one of the key ones, and the one that's you know, the basis of this of the initiative of blue bonds is bond, and I think the way that you wrote it, Kendall, is very, very well articulated. I think it's very clear what it means, and then what then means a blue bond, and how does that relate to this? So essentially, I mean, I'm going to kind of summarize how you frame it. So feel free to continue with it. But when a government wants to borrow money, so just like any other individual who's borrowing money, the government will issue bonds that are so they will issue bonds that are sold kind of in markets. So this bond is, in return, the government gets a lump sum payment that they pay. So they get this payment up front, and then they pay the money back, just like any other individual getting money from a bank. They will pay this money back over time to the holders of the bond. But the holders of the bond will be those who are the shareholders in this bond market. So the bond itself can be bought and sold on the markets just as stocks are. And because it's the government who is the agent, the individual who is receiving the loan, it's often perceived that these bonds are very safe. You know, they're safe financial arrangements, because a government rarely will default entirely on its loan. I mean, obviously that happens, but it's less likely to happen than on an individual level. They're less likely to default on their debts. And so the blue part of it comes from the fact that if the government is getting a loan, then that money must be used to promote marine or ocean conservation. So it's often that you have green bonds, which are used for nature protection in terrestrial areas, but blue refers to the ocean. So it's essentially a government getting money and paying back the debt through conservation. That's what a blue bond is. But Kendall, maybe you have additional things to add there.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think that to take a sort of step back, when you think about how does a government sort of function or get its money, you know, it has a few options. You know, you can tax, and that sort of relies on there being a fair amount of money or available in a country to tax. If you don't have taxes, then yeah, you have to borrow money. I guess the third option is that some countries can print their own money, but of course, if you do too much of that, then you can have other sort of long-lasting impacts on your economy. And so, if you're a nation that doesn't have a lot of wealth, the borrowing can sometimes be the only option if you want to go out and do something that might be collectively desired, you know, like build a road or a new power plant or really anything else that we think of governments doing. I mean, it could be building schools or whatever. Now, I think one of the things that we talk about in the article is this concept of uneven exchange. So if you're a country that is focused primarily on like agricultural production or fisheries, these are things that people tend not to pay a lot of money for. So there's not a ton as much value in that as say something like a car that is quite expensive and has gone through a lot of different sort of processes that add economic values along every step of the way. And so there you can see this dynamic reproduce globally over and over again, where you have, again, mostly sort of European countries, although wealthy countries that list is sort of expanding ever more rapidly. But wealthy countries tend to import these sort of commodities and agricultural products at a relatively cheap rate. So bananas are quite inexpensive. So you can't grow those in the United States. So you make sure that the price stays very low. And then on the other hand, what you do then is you export the expensive stuff that your country makes to poorer countries that don't have auto manufacturing plants or something like that. And so through this process, it's just reproduced over and over again, where people then are importing more than they're exporting, and they're sort of stuck in. And this is often called either uneven exchange or dependency theory, where nations don't have their own sort of economic independence, and they're relying on imports from wealthy countries. And I think understanding that is sort of key to Vijay's original question was, where did this debt come from in the first place? And a lot of the places that we're talking about, as you said, YaYa, we're set up as slave colonies. And so this was designed from the beginning to be a place where cheap commodities could be produced and then sort of sent back into the imperial core. And you could probably help me a lot out with the history of Belize, but I believe the British directly controlled it just until a couple months before I was born in 1981. Is that correct?
It's arguable if they ever stopped.
Right.
The head of state is the governor general, whose loyalty is, she's the queen representative. So there's a lot what I read, blue neocolonialism. Like, I really appreciated looking at it from a different perspective. Time has passed, but not much has changed. And so even when you say the word bond, for everyday people, it's like, that's not something you can touch. Like, we don't understand. And again, this is where the secrecy happens. So, okay, we understand that the government of Belize borrowed, most of us don't even understand this. They borrowed a series of loans and didn't pay them back after they agreed to pay them back, and it was called the Blue Bond. We, the Belizean people who are paying these loans, have no idea what that money was used for. So indeed, where did these loans come from? Regardless of where they came from, to our knowledge, there wasn't any fiscal accountability because Belize is weak on public auditing. The general's report isn't fleshed out at the public. I forgot the PUC, the committee, one of the house committees where you would flesh out public funding. That isn't functioning. The integrity committee. So there's no adequate auditing of the public funds. So indeed, we can't tell you where the loan came from. And then here we go again. We're just pretty much changing one debtor for another. But even in having a conversation about what is a bond, I cannot, like, I hear you, but I can't visualize. I could visualize that we owe them people a bulk of money, right? And then okay, we owe the money. So it's like, okay, who started a conversation to say, what's going to happen since we defaulted like 3 times in whatever amount of years? How was the decision made? Because there wasn't a public conversation about it. There was no political campaign. How was the decision made that this is what we're going to do? We are going to go with TNC, and then this is what the process is. Like, this is what happened. So we have to go to break, but before we go to break, Jada, I'm going to bring up the article because I want to show you, this is a news review show, Committee for the Abolition of Illegitimate Debt, how it is that they pointed out, I think at point number 8, if I'm not mistaken, Jada, where they made the valid point that the secrecy is an issue. And then when we come back, I'll have them answer that, give their 2 cents on that people don't understand how the arrangement even happened. And so in point number 8 says TNC's debt for nature swaps must be rejected. There are several reasons for this. And point number 9, which is addressing the secrecy part, debt for nature swaps are negotiated and finalized in secret. This is because publicity surrounding these deals could have unpredictable effects on bond markets, such as increasing the value of the debts of developing countries on secondary markets, therefore making them more expensive to buy. Free, prior, and informed consent of citizens affected by these deals cannot be achieved with this debt swap model. So right away, okay, so that's one thing, right? That the secrecy about, that's why I have to ask you all who do the empirical research, unravel the secrecy about it. And then before we go to break, Jada, I don't know if I can't see if you're bringing these things up, Jada. Can you bring up the TNC article for me, Jada? TNC wrote an article, and this article is dated November 10th, 2022. It's called, Blue Streak, a trailblazing approach to marine conservation piloted in the Seychelles finds new success in Belize by Julian Smith, freelance writer, November 10, 2022, winter 2022. Now, this is what I'm showing you all. I want Jada to bring it up and then we're going to break. This is what the Nature Conservancy said. This is what they say without a demo. I don't like hearing, so I like use of them words. It said, they're talking about the former president of Belize Women Seafood Farming Association. Her last name is Wallen. It said, some citizens like Wallen will see the blue bond as a boon for their ocean-based livelihood. Pay attention to this next part. But 18 months of confidentiality around the deal to avoid driving up the price of the blue bond before an agreement was struck mean that there's some public relations work to be done to convince others. Quote, we need to be able to show people how they directly benefit from it, says Robinson, to address possible concerns that the deal will make more of the ocean off limits to Belizeans. TNC is getting the word out by holding information sessions, producing educational videos, and hiring new staff dedicated to engaging with stakeholders. Now, we've already addressed who these stakeholders are, and you're paying attention, Vijay, because indeed, that Radisson, they had that meeting. I like how you pay attention. And I'm really appreciating the conversation. I have one of my brother, well, listen, grassroots, Dara Robinson said, yeah, why not bring in my people who talk big language? So I told them we have to make sure the language is so that the majority of the Belizean people can relate to it. And so far, I feel that we're successful in that. And so when we come back, I want both Kendall and Vijay to explain to us, because I can't visualize this bond thing. Like, how did this even happen? We have to go to the, I'm going to dedicate the whole last segment just to TNC. But know that Belizean people, we have to hold ourselves accountable first. Secondly, the government of Belize, the people who were elected to manage our natural resources. Break time, stay tuned.
On Wednesday, 12th March 2025, voters in 29 of the 31 electoral divisions in the country will have an opportunity to elect a representative of their choice to represent them in the House of Representatives. Note that there will be no contested elections for the Pickstock and Fort George electoral divisions, as only one candidate for each of these two divisions were nominated on nomination day. On your ballot, your voice matters. Be heard and go vote to elect your representative. Disabled, elderly, and pregnant women will be given priority. The voter enters the polling station and shows her voter identification card. The poll clerk announces her name in an audible voice. The first poll clerk verifies the particulars of the voter on the voter's list, while the second poll clerk verifies the particulars in the electoral binder. The voter's name is then ruled off from the voter's list. The voter is then required to show her right index finger to ensure that she has not yet voted. The voter's right index finger is then dipped up to the first joint in the indelible ink. The voter is then directed to the presiding officer, who then initials a ballot paper and issues it to the voter. The voter then proceeds to the polling booth and marks a cross on the right-hand side of the ballot paper, opposite the name of the candidate of her choice. When the voter has marked her vote, she folds the ballot paper so as to conceal the vote and shows the presiding officer her initials, then places the ballot paper inside the ballot box. The voter then exits the polling station. Remember, you are permitted to vote for only one candidate. Voters are strictly advised to pay keen attention to the assigned number and name of the candidate. After verifying the number and name on the ballot paper, place a cross in the box beside the color assigned to the candidate whom you wish to vote for. Remember, you are to place your cross in only one box, as you are permitted to vote for only one candidate. Electors are encouraged to take along their voter identification card to their polling station to facilitate the process. Your ballot paper will be rejected and not counted if it does not have the presiding officer's initial. If the voter has voted for more candidates than there are seats. If the ballot paper is not marked for any candidate. If the ballot paper contains any writing or mark that can identify the voter. And if the ballot paper is unmarked or void for uncertainty. Your voice matters. Be heard. Go vote. A message brought to you by the Elections and Boundaries Department.
Welcome to Atlantic Online. In this step-by-step video, we will show you how to unlock your user. Click Unlock User on the personal login page. Enter your username, then click Send OTP. You will receive a 6-digit one-time password OTP via email and SMS. The OTP is valid for 5 minutes. Do not share this OTP with anyone. Enter the OTP, then click Unlock. If you did not receive the OTP, click Resend OTP. And if you still do not receive the OTP, please visit your nearest branch. Your account has now been unlocked successfully, and you can now log in. For more step-by-step videos, view our Atlantic Online playlist on YouTube to learn how to perform your banking transactions. Bank your way with any of our digital channels and save time for what matters most.
At Brothers Habet and Habet, we've always proudly celebrated Women's Month. And we continue to elevate our offerings by providing great customer service and even greater deals. That's why, once again, we're giving all women a special 15% off all products store-wide. From paints to plumbing, the women of Brothers Habet and Habet are igniting change with every smile, every solution, and every act of service. We have everything you need and service that's second to none. So visit or call us today or find us on Facebook and Instagram. Let's accelerate action. Happy Women's Month from all of us at Brothers Habet and Habet.
Our people are working, they are getting lands, they have access to free education, they are getting NHI, they are starting small businesses, and more women are in leadership positions. Crime is going down, our farmers are looking up, our soldiers are being treated better. Everybody wants to be a police officer, and teachers and public officers are becoming landowners. Roads have literally been built to the future. You know, we haven't been perfect. We won't dare tell anyone that we have. But from where we started and where we are now, we've come a long way.
Power on with confidence. Design Depot brings you an attractive selection of GE appliances, including microwaves, washers, dryers, refrigerators, dishwashers, countertop appliances, and more. We understand the importance of appliances that not only endure, but also excel in performance. As your trusted GE USA authorized dealer, we stand for reliability and performance, ensuring that you can power on with confidence. Visit us today and power on with efficient, reliable, and energy-saving solutions with GE appliances from Design Depot.
Design Depot, all in one place.
Mesopotamia deserve better. Better than Shine Barrow and better than Lee Mark Chang. Larry Ellis are the PUP champion in a mess up. He a part of a strong, united, and solid team. The same team would deliver all over the country. Housing, good jobs, free education, national health insurance, and land for thousands of Belizeans. The time for mess up come up with the PUP. The UDP never do nothing for mess up. And everybody know they will lose this election. Shine and Lee Mark will roll out after elections. Better Mesopotamia stick with Larry Ellis and the winning team. That time for got blue in a mess up. Chase what the bad vibes for March 12. Belize the right pan track with the PUP.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you've been waiting for. In this corner, we have the masters of limitless power and unbeatable connections. Pioneers of 4G LTE in Belize. It's the undefeated champion, Smart. And in the other corner, struggling to keep up, it's the other guy. Fight! Tired of getting blow after blow from a plan with the other guys? It's time to tap out and join the winning postpaid plan provider. Smart's postpaid plans are a total knockout to the competition, and they have once again powered up their postpaid plans. Sign up for one of Smart's boosted postpaid power plans today and experience the victory of superior service. Smart, bringing people together.
Welcome back to the second segment of Sunday Review. We have Vijay. Make I put on my glasses so I pronounce Vijay name wrong. Kolinjivadi. He's a writer and researcher, among other things. And we have Kendall Dix, who is the policy director at Taproot Earth. But I saw at the end of that article that he's a climate policy. Is that what it said? He works in climate policy and lives on a farm outside Charlottesville, Virginia. And we're continuing this conversation about blue neocolonialism. In the first segment, we unpackaged a lot. I've asked Jada to bring up two articles. She couldn't find the Nature Conservancy article. I don't know if you can find it now, Jada, and go to that section that I talked about where the Nature Conservancy said that they had to, for 18 months, pretty much be quiet about this whole agreement. And then we'll go to a Bloomberg article. While you bring up that Nature Conservancy one, Jada, I will go to kind of no drink break. We have juicy conversations. Vijay said something during, and so did Kendall. And I'm asking Vijay to say what you said during the break to me and repeat it so we understand and we don't get lost with the essence of this conversation. Then we'll turn over to Kendall. Go ahead, Vijay.
Yes, thank you, YaYa. I think all of these, we have this blue bond, we have debt conversations, debt relief, all these things that are being thrown around, and all of this with the government and conservation and all of this. But we have to remember that above all, Belize should not be paying debt at all. Belize has been the victim of absolute, as you say, YaYa, the robbing of identity for centuries through slavery, through colonial violence, genocide, an absolute wanton destruction of everything that is about life in Belize, you know, in every aspect. I think ecologically, socially, bodily. So the very idea of debt in the first place is very, very flawed. You know, Belize should be receiving reparations from the colonial oppressor, and that reparation doesn't even necessarily need to be that it. I mean, it could be in financial terms, but first of all, it should be debt relief entirely. There should not be debt forgiveness, entire debt forgiveness. There should not be debt relief so that new forms of debt can replace it. That's not what this is the number one thing that we should be demanding the government to be fighting for. You know, I think that is there's so much violence that has happened, that continues to happen, and all of these processes of just transferring debt are just continuing that colonial legacy. So I think before we even get further into all these other new strategies of finance and debt relief and whatever, we have to remember that Belize should not be paying debt. There should not be debt at all. It should be reparation. That reparation should be recognition, acknowledgement of other ways of connecting with Mother Earth, with each other, and the ability and capacity to have the autonomy and sovereignty over the territory, unrelated whatsoever to financial payments. So
I agree with you 100%, Vijay. And it's one of the, if you follow, we have a number of hashtags on Facebook, because United Black Association United Black Association for Development Educational Foundation, a small community-based organization in Belize dedicated to the liberation of African descendants racialized as Black people. I'm the chairperson. We're leading from the bottom up the awareness campaign when it comes to environmental justice. We have several hashtags, such as hashtag Belizeans that environment on Facebook. We also have hashtag BZE African Reparations UEF. And one of the things that we're very clear on, UEF looks at African reparations. The CARICOM 10-point, and CARICOM is an economic bloc. That's their mindset. It's the colonial mindset. They're looking at financial compensation. And based on Professor Chinwezo's definition of African reparation, which is a Pan-African view, financial compensation is 1%. The majority of African reparation has to do with the repairing of ourselves. We don't even know that in our minds, we're thinking, I'm talking in a colonized language. I'm thinking in a colonized language. We don't even know who we are. And that this colonized language and narrative and values and ways of being is anti who Indigenous and African people are. And so that's why I'm pleased that Vijay and Kendall said, remember now, we have to keep putting this center, that this is not the only way to be. That's the issue. That is what is destroying Mama Earth and us. This narrative, this colonial way of extracting and greed and money and more, and the people who are putting together these financial instruments are the very people, or their backers are the very colonizers that started in the first place. So how you want to start one problem where you still the dirtiness in? Anyways, Kendall, go ahead and add your 2 cents.
I just want to second everything that's already been said. And a thing that I would add into that too is that European nations are also far and away, the United States, the number one lifetime climate polluter as well. And so climate reparations is something that my organization, Taproot Earth, advocates for. We go to the UN climate talks to advocate for this. And I would just want to say that if people are sort of really interested in this topic of reparation, there's a book called Reconsidering Reparations by Olufemi Taiwo, which I think is fantastic. And one of the concepts that he talks a lot is world making as sort of a way that people have thought about what about post-colonial nation building and things like that, which is again sort of when we're talking about sort of debt relations, when it's not based on something that's reparative, it's just something that again becomes just another way to extract money or to extract things of value from poorer nations and nations that have been colonized.
Kendall and Vijay. Jada, if you can bring up that Bloomberg article. There are two things that this is a recent Bloomberg article from, I think it was January 11th, 2023. And it's called Wall Street's New ESG. And I never even know what the ESG. Environmental social governance, moneymaker promises nature conservation with a catch. Now, it gives a synopsis of what the blue bond is, but what was revealing for me, talk again about the secrecy, what was revealing for me, I had no idea that a former politician was the domestic advisor for this loan. His name is Marcus Pat. That was revealing for me. And Jada, if you can go, what, again, because I was asking you all, like, based on what you know about the Seychelles, Kendall, like, how did this conversation happen? Did the government approach TNC? Did TNC approach the government? Like, how did this happen? So what was revealing for me in this particular article on the Wall Street article, that is, not the Wall Street, the BNN Bloomberg article, what was, oh, it's not that one. What was revealing for me is that, in the essence of time, I'll find it. I'll just keep talking. Is that Marcus Pat said, like, pretty much it was either this deal or the IMF, what the IMF offered, which is often, you know, higher taxes, less money to social programs. No one has ever said that. That's the first time I saw it in an article from like a couple, like 11 days ago. And so that, I'm just like, one, I didn't know Marcus Pat was involved in the process. Two, I didn't know the IMF deal. IMF was another option if we didn't go with this blue bond deal. So again, talking about the secrecy of deals like these. But Kendall and Vijay, tell us, to your knowledge, how these deals actually happen. Like, what happened in the Seychelles, Kendall? How did the government of Seychelles approach TNC? Like, how does this happen?
I just want to be, you know, sort of straight up that I don't know exactly what happened. I wasn't in the room, but it's my understanding that this has largely been driven by the Nature Conservancy approaching governments that have a lot of debt and have perhaps some sort of natural asset that the Nature Conservancy thinks is worth preserving. So they're the wealthiest environmental nonprofit in the United States. They've been around, I think, since the 1950s. And really what they're trying to do is to have either forests or in some cases, you know, coral reefs or other places that they consider to have exceptional natural value to be protected as much as possible from any sort of human use or interaction for as long as possible, preferably forever. And so, yes, it's my understanding that they have approached these nations, which they may have some existing relationship with. They have scientists in a lot of countries. They also have relationships with a lot of banks. So I know in Belize, they worked directly with Credit Suisse, a Swiss bank. And if you ever want to read a Wikipedia article that is, you know, where the scandals section is longer than almost the information about anything else, go check out the Wikipedia article for Credit Suisse.
Thanks for your honesty, Kendall. I never in the room. Jada, I sent you the wrong article. I just sent you the right one for the Bloomberg one that has the Mark Espat quote. Back to what you were saying, Kendall, about what, to the best of your knowledge, is that TNC approached them, the government. What I've sent and shared with Vijay, which I didn't know, and I'll send that as Vijay speaks next, is that it's not the first debt for nature swap between Belize and TNC. I did not know that. In 2001, there was a debt for nature swap with Belize and TNC. So I'll give Vijay the mic. With that in context, is Vijay, as Vijay has said to me, that set precedent that this doesn't work. What did you mean by that, Vijay, when you said from that 2001 experience, and I'll share the Channel 5 news story that reported that in 2001, why did you say that it set precedent and it doesn't work, Vijay?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to remember. So we discussed this thing about Belize should not have to pay debt at all. It's not. We don't need people to come in and tell that and extract resources and labor from people and expect that to pay back their loans for things that Belizeans are actually that need to be received back to people that have been stolen. You know, life worlds, whole identities have been stolen for generations through genocide and ecocide. This is not so that's, again, always remembering that as the first thing. Then secondly, knowing that TNC and through this debt relief program, the aim is return on investment. These companies do not, these organizations do not engage in these activities if they're not expecting to gain a profit from it. So in the case of TNC, with the current Blue Bonds 2021 agreement, the strategy is to leverage some $40 to $60 million and expect to receive $1.6 billion through marine conservation finance. So the idea is you're going to triple. So TNC will receive triple the amount of the return on investment through this program. And for Belize,
wait, Vijay. Spin and come again. Pivot. So that slowly make sure we understand good what you said, because sometimes people think that like they want charity event like TNT to do we a favor. Run that by way again.
Not at all. It's no favor whatsoever. I mean, this is from their own documentation. If you go to the documentation of TNC on the blue bond, the super bond, and what the blue bond is doing, their aim with the strategy is to use between 40 and 60 million US dollars in donor support, and we'll talk about who those donors are, I think, later. But so through donor support, to generate an estimated $1.6 billion back, and that money that is generated back will happen through marine conservation finance, so through the financing, but also through marine protected areas, through the conservation strategies that Belize will put in place. Now, what is in it for Belize? So why did they do this in 2001, and why is this? Where does this come from? Why is it even attractive? So for Belize, the idea between TNC and Belize is that if they engage in this debt for nature exchange, so you have debt relief in exchange for protecting nature, and this happens through this bond, then you can refinance the debt on a better term that might create savings through conservation. And also because the money that you're paying it back in is through Belizean currency, so you don't pay it back through US dollars. So there's certain, the terms and conditions are a bit more favorable, it seems. Again, remembering that we don't even need to be paying debt in the first place. That's always remembering that. But then you have, as Kendall had already said, it's like you are doing things to make it seem that it's favorable without asking that bigger question. So it appears, though, then that Belize will benefit from this. So in 2001, it was an agreement, again, a debt for nature swap. It wasn't a blue bond. It was a kind of a green bond, I guess, in this case, because it involved rainforest protection. So it was the very first of its kind associated with this Tropical Forest Conservation Act, which was issued by the United States Congress in 1998. So in that bond agreement in 2001, it was that Belize received a reduction of its debt by almost $10 million in exchange for payments to local conservation organizations, including TNC, to promote nature conservation. So in this case, the protection of forests, so through forest conservation. And it was the first, actually, the first debt for nature swap, so of sovereign to sovereign debt swap that happened through an NGO, to what it seems from our knowledge here, that was the first one of its case. But now, if you look at what the economic situation has been like in Belize for the last 20 years, it's hard to actually, can we honestly say, and here I must submit to your knowledge, YaYa, on what has it been like for ordinary for ordinary people in Belize, especially those who are fishers? What has, if you can think back in the last 15 years, have there been any improvements through conservation that have benefited people day-to-day lives? I think that's one of the most important questions to reflect on first, when we know well that $10 million of sovereign debt was relieved in 2001 from a previous debt for nature swap. It will give indication of what this bigger bond is doing in the future.
Good question. I'll have to go to the fishers and ask them because I don't have that answer. Kendall, what has been your experience based on empirical research, based on I like that you get to start off as a line cooker. I'm like, yes, you know where to talk about. And then based on the research you did with Seychelles and the Blue Bond, marine protected areas, tell us what that means, and if there's an alternative to marine protected areas. Again, I don't feel that I know most fishers in Belize don't understand or what it means, or if there's an alternative. The horse is already out the barn, the Blue Bond has been signed, but we still need to understand, because the MPA is like big thing. People go get a PhD in an MPA. Marine protected areas, the wari. Buzzwords right now. What are MPAs? And then after that, we'll go to break. Kendall?
Generally, I would say that you could think of a marine protected area as sort of a national park for the water. Mm-hmm. And I think that frequently that means no fishing. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes fishermen, if they're politically active or have some sort of power or say in the situation, they generally, I worked with fishermen a lot in the Gulf of Mexico.
You don't want the fisher folks? You don't have
fisher folk, yes, thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, fisher folk, seafood harvesters as well, I guess, if we want to include the folks that are working on oysters and shellfish and things like that. And in my experience, they don't like marine protected areas at all. There's a general sense that that just means that fishermen are going to be excluded. And in the article that I wrote, if you follow some of the links, there are a number of studies that call into the question whether or not this is the best way to protect natural resources. In many cases, there are other ways to do that. You could, restrict the type of fishing gear that you use to fish. You could limit things in any number of ways. We could figure out ways for fishermen fisher folk who have been stewarding this resource for a number of for a very long time. We might ask ourselves if there are ways that we can actually sustainably fish and feed ourselves with a self-renewing resource, as long as we're sort of not taking too much and things like that. So I think that's sort of at the heart of this. But I think marine protected areas can be really varied, sort of on where they are, who's enforcing it, who are the user groups that might be interested in this. Is it catering to tourists? As I talk about in the article too, sometimes conservation actually invites more people to come be around there. So if you're protecting your coral reef, but then building tons and tons of hotels near the shoreline, the sedimentation from that is actually maybe going to have a net sort of negative impact on the resource. The other thing that I just wanted to add before I forget about it too is that these marine protected areas can now, thanks to financialization of nature, like for carbon offsets and things like that, become a source of revenue. So I know the Nature Conservancy in the past has been able to use the areas that they're protecting for quote unquote, like altruistic reasons or for charity or for nature, that they then go back and sell that to corporations who are trying to, green their image or try to supposedly offset, some of their more destructive activities with buying these offsets. And so I would not be surprised at all if the Nature Conservancy has some sort of deal here where they're going to be able to sell the areas that are being protected through the Blue Bond scheme on a carbon offset market that will further enrich the people who have been involved in this deal.
Thanks. We have to go to break, but indeed, Kendall, I was so excited because there I think 5 subtopics under that blue neocolonialism, and one of them had to do with fishing. And so when I clicked on the link, which is what I love about research, and you could just be there forever. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to learn more about MPAs. And then engage fishers after I've done that research. But I really value the time it took for you to put, I like how you write just like how you talk. I really, really like that article as a point of conversation. So I really value both you and Vijay being here. Now, when we come back, understand, I will tell you now again. First, we, the Belizean people, must hold ourselves accountable in every way for the state development of ourselves and our country. Secondly, the government of Belize is accountable. Political leadership, people we elected, whoever they appointed, they're responsible. Other actors, such as TNC, could only do what they do because our political leaders allowed it. Now remember, TNC is looking after TNC interests. TNC interest is not Belizean people primarily and the country of Belize. You can go to TNC website and they'll tell you what their interests are. The government of Belize ought to be looking after Belizean people interests. Ought to be. So I tell you no, I declare my interest, Belizean people are my interest, in particular African descendants racialized as Black people. Now, see when we come back, Kendall want to start this last segment. I want to get a sense, and I want to listen good to what TNC, the organization, is. Stay tuned when they come back.
Earn V-Bucks and get a chance to win a $10,000 homecation with Benny's. Quality and savings.
There are more people working than ever before. More people going to school than ever before. There are more cement houses being built than ever before. There are more tourists coming to this country than ever before. We've given our people a pride of purpose, a certain dignity that comes with work, a certain composition that comes with optimism. It's about Belizean pride. It's about the Belizean family, about the Belizean man, woman, and child. Thousands of our children getting free education with meals, uniforms, books, and transportation will never be poor. And I'm here to tell you that free education is coming to St. Bethard College right here, right now, in August of this year.
Power on with confidence. Design Depot brings you an attractive selection of GE appliances, including microwaves, washers, dryers, refrigerators, dishwashers, countertop appliances, and more. We understand the importance of appliances that not only endure, but also excel in performance. As your trusted GE USA authorized dealer, we stand for reliability and performance, ensuring that you can power on with confidence. Visit us today and power on with efficient, reliable, and energy-saving solutions with GE appliances from Design Depot.
Design Depot, all in one place.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is what you've been waiting for. In this corner, we have the masters of limitless power and unbeatable connections. Pioneers of 4G LTE in Belize. It's the undefeated champion, Smart. And in the other corner, struggling to keep up, it's the other guy. Fight! Tired of getting blow after blow from a plan with the other guys? It's time to tap out and join the winning postpaid plan provider. Smart's postpaid plans are a total knockout to the competition, and they have once again powered up their postpaid plans. Sign up for one of Smart's boosted postpaid power plans today and experience the victory of superior service. Smart, bringing people together.
On Wednesday, 12th March 2025, voters in 29 of the 31 electoral divisions in the country will have an opportunity to elect a representative of their choice to represent them in the House of Representatives. Note that there will be no contested elections for the Pickstock and Fort George electoral divisions, as only one candidate for each of these two divisions were nominated on nomination day. On your ballot, your voice matters. Be heard and go vote to elect your representative. Disabled, elderly, and pregnant women will be given priority. The voter enters the polling station and shows her voter identification card. The poll clerk announces her name in an audible voice. The first poll clerk verifies the particulars of the voter on the voter's list, while the second poll clerk verifies the particulars in the electoral binder. The voter's name is then ruled off from the voter's list. The voter is then required to show her right index finger to ensure that she has not yet voted. The voter's right index finger is then dipped up to the first joint in the indelible ink. The voter is then directed to the presiding officer, who then initials a ballot paper and issues it to the voter. The voter then proceeds to the polling booth and marks a cross on the right-hand side of the ballot paper, opposite the name of the candidate of her choice. When the voter has marked her vote, she folds the ballot paper so as to conceal the vote and shows the presiding officer her initials, then places the ballot paper inside the ballot box. The voter then exits the polling station. Remember, you are permitted to vote for only one candidate. Voters are strictly advised to pay keen attention to the assigned number and name of the candidate. After verifying the number and name on the ballot paper, place a cross in the box beside the color assigned to the candidate whom you wish to vote for. Remember, you are to place your cross in only one box, as you are permitted to vote for only one candidate. Electors are encouraged to take along their voter identification card to their polling station to facilitate the process. Your ballot paper will be rejected and not counted if it does not have the presiding officer's initial. If the voter has voted for more candidates than there are seats. If the ballot paper is not marked for any candidate. If the ballot paper contains any writing or mark that can identify the voter. And if the ballot paper is unmarked or void for uncertainty. Your voice matters. Be heard. Go vote. A message brought to you by the Elections and Boundaries Department.
Welcome to Atlantic Online. In this step-by-step video, we will show you how to unlock your user. Click Unlock User on the personal login page. Enter your username, then click Send OTP. You will receive a 6-digit one-time password (OTP) via email and SMS. The OTP is valid for 5 minutes. Do not share this OTP with anyone. Enter the OTP, then click Unlock. If you did not receive the OTP, click Resend OTP. And if you still do not receive the OTP, please visit your nearest branch. Your account has now been unlocked successfully, and you can now log in. For more step-by-step videos, view our Atlantic Online playlist on YouTube to learn how to perform your banking transactions. Bank your way with any of our digital channels and save time for what matters most.
Mesopotamia deserve better. Better than Shine Barrow and better than Lee Mark Chang. Larry Ellis is the PUP champion in a Mesop. He's a part of a strong, united and solid team. The same team would deliver all over the country. Housing, good jobs, free education, national health insurance, and land for thousands of Belizeans. The time for mess up come up with the PUP. The UDP never do nothing for mess up. And everybody know they will lose this election. Shine and Lee Mark will roll out after elections. Better Mesopotamia stick with Larry Ellis and the winning team. The time for got blue in a mess up. Chase what the bad vibes for March 12. Belize the right pan track with the PUP.
At Brothers Habet and Habet, we've always proudly celebrated Women's Month. And we continue to elevate our offerings by providing great customer service and even greater deals. That's why, once again, we're giving all women a special 15% off all products store-wide. From paints to plumbing, the women of Brothers Habet and Habet are igniting change with every smile, every solution, and every act of service. We have everything you need and service that's second to none. So visit or call us today or find us on Facebook and Instagram. Let's accelerate action. Happy Women's Month from all of us at Brothers Habet and Habet.
The last segment of Sunday Review. Are we on, Jada? I'm trusting that we're on. Yes, we're on. Thanks, Jada Anderson, Master Control Operator at Creme Television. Thanks so much, Jada, for working as hard as you are. Thanks, sis. And so this segment is really like Kendall Dick segment. If you go and read that article, and I'm telling you to go read on Even Earth, but blue neo-colonialism, Kendall, give it a dirty pan TNC, the Nature Conservancy. Tell me what you know that's important for us as everyday people to really understand.
Again, this is an organization that's been around, I believe, for about 70 years now. The main thing that they do in the United States is that they go to landowners and they get this legal instrument called an easement. And so sort of what that means is that there's now a restriction on your property. So a lot of this is all predicated on the private ownership of property, which I would argue is, again, sort of one of the foundational problems with our relationship with nature. So they have no desire, I guess, to change the legal way that we sort of think about property. They're only interested, for the most part, in working with private landowners to bring more land under conservation, but from a private sort of individual perspective. And that is how they started. That's how their bread and butter. I would say, I can't remember the exact number. If I have it, I don't know if I have it in front of me, but they have huge amounts of land. I think, again, as Vijay hinted, their endowment at the time that I wrote the article was over $6 billion. I have it in front of me here from a Google search that the GDP the gross domestic product of Belize, their entire economic activity for the year is less than $2.5 billion. So you're talking about an organization with land holdings all over the world that has money that is greater than entire nations. They have people that that come and go from their organization that might end up in oil and gas or have worked there. They've had people that were executives at Goldman Sachs come work for them, and so they had. I don't believe that this was always a focus of the organization, but in recent decades, they're monetizing nature and climate finance has become one of the things that they've really started to focus on. And that's why we're sort of talking about green bonds and blue bonds today. They found out, it's another way, I guess, of sort of getting conservation restrictions in place. But with this, it's sort of taking advantage of nations that really need the money. So they're not doing these sort of debt for nature swaps with European nations or that at least not wealthy ones that I'm aware of. So they're really going to places that have a lot of debt. Again, because of that uneven exchange that we talked about, and because of these patterns of colonial extraction. And so they're going into formerly colonized nations and saying, hey, we noticed that you have all this outstanding debt. Wouldn't it be nice if that debt payment was a little bit lower? And then if I was a nation, I might say, yeah, that's great. I would love there to be lower debt. Sort of, what's the catch? And then the catch is that you're going to have to spend all of that money on marine protected areas, whether or not that's something that's in the interest of your fishing industry, or whether or not it's something that the people want at all. But this sort of exclusionary idea of conservation is core to their organization, and they are basically completely agnostic on politics, about addressing these root causes that we were talking about, like trade imbalances or colonial patterns. So they will do whatever is necessary to get that land under their protection, whether that involves working with corrupt banks, whether or not it involves working with oil and gas companies, pharmaceutical giants. It doesn't matter. They're interested in accumulating as much money as possible, so that they can go out and have more and more land that is exclusionary towards human beings and frequently indigenous populations.
Based on that, and whole lot thought that you had when we were at break, Vijay, because I want you to come back and say that on air. But to add to what you were saying just now, Kendall, Credit Suisse, I may be pronouncing the name wrong, had a lawsuit that they settled because of a tuna corruption business in Mozambique. So I'm saying, look at the people who TNC partner with. And then just this morning, you told me about Vera, the US-based nonprofit that oversees a carbon credit program. So tell us what you know, if anything, Kendall, about Credit Suisse credibility, and then about Vera that we should pay attention to as everyday people in Belize when it comes to these blue bonds, carbon credit. Define what carbon credit is, please, Kendall.
Well, I'll definitely turn it over to Vijay soon, because I think he has perhaps even more expertise than me on the backgrounds of some of these banks. But I do know that I remember just from reading it in the news that Credit Suisse has been fined hundreds of millions of dollars, in some cases for aiding in money laundering. They, I believe, were involved in some of the, sort of like interest rate fixing scandals. Again, I sort of have a Wikipedia level knowledge of this, so I'll turn it over to Vijay quickly before I say something wrong or embarrass myself.
But you could tell us about Vera.
Vera, well, I think Vijay would also be an excellent source on this, but there's been a lot in the news recently about carbon offsets. Again, you know, basically you're giving people money for something that should already, that they might have already been doing, or that just needs to happen anyway. So we need, both in terms of just living in a good world and to meet our climate targets, to not be clear cutting forests. That's something that needs to happen, that needs to happen anyway. And so then when you introduce sort of this financial sort of like element of it, you'll have you know, places like corporations buying these credits to continue polluting, and then, you know, Vera is one of these organizations that's certifying these things. And so I'll turn it over to you, Vijay, to sort of talk more about carbon offsets and some of these banks.
Thanks, Kendall.
Thanks, Kendall. Yes, so Credit Suisse, in addition to TNC, as well as the holders of the blue bond, the super bond, are the ones who are funding this blue bond investment company. This blue bond investment company is basically like a repository. It's where it's receiving money from TNC donations. It's receiving money from Credit Suisse, which is also, you know, funding this project. It's receiving money from the share, you know, through all of the shareholders who are exchanging this bond on the market. It's receiving all of this money, and then that is what is being used to write off, you know, the debt for Belize. So you have this arrangement. Credit Suisse, just as an example of absolute of corruption on a systemic level, in 2001, as you mentioned, YaYa, in Mozambique, they had given a loan of some 350. Well, they were fined. Nearly 350 million British pounds for fraud, because they had agreed to forgive $200 million US dollars of debt owed by Mozambique, in exchange for what they called these tuna bonds. So it was $1 billion worth of loans to support the tuna industry, the state-led tuna industry in Mozambique. But what was found was that as part of this arrangement, they were giving some $137 million as kickbacks to government officials, but also themselves. So the Credit Suisse bankers, up to $50 million went to the bankers themselves as a way to justify the credibility of the loan to other investors. So it was a way to be like, look, we already have $50 million. So this was in 2000. Well, this was between the years of 2012 and 2016. And during this time, Mozambique experienced an economic crash. So there was an economic impact of this, which clearly and obviously very, very harshly affects ordinary Mozambicans, you know. So while these people are playing around with others' lives through these exchanges in money and loans, the population itself is suffering tremendously. So this was already the background of Credit Suisse. And as Kendall has mentioned, there's a litany of others, so many, you know, Wikipedia page full of other scandals. So, you know, this is already a massive red flag here, in addition to TNC. And with carbon offsetting, so carbon offsetting is, you know, you can go ahead and fly around the world. You can purchase whatever you want, knowing that the ecological impact associated with your carbon usage can be offset by just paying a little bit of extra money as a consumer into a project that will capture carbon somewhere else. So this happens through forest plantation, oftentimes through forest conservation and forest plantations, but also, as you mentioned, through the ocean conservation. So the amount of carbon that can be captured in the ocean. So you can sell. So when you have these landscapes and ecosystems that can capture carbon, then you can identify the value of that carbon and then use it as a equivalence. You trade it for the amount of money that went into its capture. So you have these schemes, these arrangements that are really just about exchanging money for this supposed capture of the carbon. What one of the biggest carbon sort of creditors or third-party verifiers, which is called Vera, was recently in a just 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, there was a report in The Guardian, the British newspaper, The Guardian, that revealed they did an investigation and found that in one of their largest projects for carbon capture in Peru, in the Alto Maya region, straddling the Amazon rainforest area, that 94% of their carbon credits, so all this money that they had managed to capture through carbon sequestration, 94% of those credits were worthless. They had hyped the deforestation risk in those areas by 400% to say that. So basically what that means is there was no risk of deforestation in those areas. So because of that, they were able to say, well, we're capturing carbon, but those forests were already there. It's not that new carbon has been captured. So you have an enormous amount of corruption on an institutional scale. So even though it's very easy to blame countries, like governments around the world, especially poor countries or other, those who are already in debt of corruption. Meanwhile, we allow the TNCs, the Credit Suisse, the banks to continue to exploit and engage in these $1 million corruption schemes or let's say kickbacks and things like that, and let them go unscathed. I think that's, you have TNC donors. Some of them are oil and gas companies, some of them are chemicals companies, some of them are pharmaceutical companies. They pay money to TNC and then as a way of avoiding paying their own taxes, because they're paying into conservation NGO. And then when you know that TNC is involved in debt restructuring of countries and trying to get $1 billion worth of return on investment through conservation, then how you see how the money is circulating between wealthy people. You see how the exploitation, the colonial violence on former colonies, which are still being colonized and predated upon, is happening through this cycle.
Wow, that's a lot. We're approaching closing time, but I'm so thankful for both of you. You have to come back before they are done. What is absolutely critical for everyday Belizean people to get? Like, this could be very low energy. Like, what can I do? I mean, I'm just trying to deal with my bread and butter issue. I can't get flour. I struggle to get flour. As it is, I have a child who's special needs, and I'm trying to get that child into a school, and I'm having a difficult time just focused on bread and butter issues. And I really like the sad but the Mozambique story to say how what Credit Suisse did impacted everyday people, and it continues to. People's lives are changed forever in a bad way. And again, these things cannot happen without the complicity of corrupt political leaders or politicians. So what can Belizean people take away from this conversation, yet still remain hopeful that I can do something meaningful to make a difference?
I would say one of the most important things, two things. One is to be very suspicious, very, very suspicious of these kinds of programs involving debt restructuring. So you have that. You know that this is not, that this is a false solution. You know that this is another repetition of history of exploitation. And then from there, we think about how we can support each other through our work. So as fishers, as farmers, as indigenous people, knowing that we have knowledge, that there is knowledge that is being lost and stolen, how can we support each other and resist, to resist these programs and allow, to demand that the needs of the people are being heard, like everyday struggles, economic struggles. I think that's don't even giving the light of day to any of these solutions, because these solutions are there to trick people. They are there to allow rich people to get richer. And so I think if just getting by day to day, the most important thing is to look around and see your brothers and sisters also struggling, and find ways that together we don't need to rely on these government initiatives. We don't need to rely on, you know, private conservation tourism, bringing people from, you know, from regions all over the world that are going to create very short-term, not dignified jobs that are going to, you know, make people be again victims of these types of things where somebody else is making a lot of money. I think it's about that mobilizing, resisting element, and coming together to support each other as much as we can, because we can't do it individually. We have to do it as a collective.
Vijay, Kendall?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I was going to say, Vijay, as well. Is that, you know, maybe it's uninteresting or unoriginal at this point to say that we have to be organized, but that really is the only thing that I can really think of. It's hard to say what is the one right thing to do to go about it, but you know, whether it's organizing your workplace, organizing as a renter, organizing as a debtor, or setting up a mutual aid network, or something like that. Us being divided and not knowledgeable about these things is why we don't have the power to build the world that we really want to see. And I think a lot of it starts with just asking the question, which Vijay kept grounding us in, which is, why does this debt exist in the first place? And so the only way that we're going to get out of this is through our collective power, and organize. I guess is the only thing that I really have to offer.
It is said that we get what we organize for. And one of the challenges I know I face with organizing in Belize, my lived experience, and I know that may not be the best analysis, that's just what I have lived, and I'm one person in the country of over 420,000 people, is I find it, and time is of essence, I find it difficult to organize with people who are deeply colonized mentally, don't know that they are, and they're thinking that what they're doing is really for the well-being of everyone. So if you have this is one of the carrots that's often dangled. So let's say you have a group of people who, like in the TNC article, they looked at the Women Seaweed Farmers Association, which is awesome. It's women-led, and they could have male members, but the executive will always be women-led. Now, for an organization like that to function, oftentimes it has to be grants. They're not sustainable. So as it is, you have a level of your autonomy or sovereignty being compromised, because who pays the piper calls the tune. So oftentimes that's one of the issues, like, how do we remain sustainable without taking independent funding? Now, these are everyday people who may not have any formal education. They just know they want to do something in their best interest. And so, and then to even get there, you have some of our people who are colonially educated with their degrees, so they think that they're the authority and they're the experts. And these the real human experiences that makes it difficult to even get organizing off the ground in a meaningful way. And then because it's not a democratic process, there's still the majority rules, as opposed to by consent. Oh, that take too long. And for me, it's extremely frustrating. Organizing in Belize, it's extreme. So I tend to, like, with UEF doing a lot of environmental justice work in the past 3 years, for the most part, I work alone. I have a team of people on the ground in Belize, regionally, internationally, that definitely nurture me, offer me support, sounding board, hold me accountable. But as far as like organizing, my best hope is that in having these conversations, because we have our One Media House, that those who are listening and hearing, even though I don't know who they are, that they're really receptive and they're thinking for themselves. And when they go to their workspaces, they may reason with other people or wherever they are in their communities. So a lot of these, like when you look at the, I think it's what is it called? The committee, I don't know, for the Blue Bond. Like there's a committee, and it has 9 people on it, but TNC has the chair. Like that's suspicious to me. But most of these people are government workers. Like they're invested years of service. They have mortgages to pay, maybe a car note, children, elders to take care of. Like they may know in their being that this is not right, but what can they're so you have those contradictions that you really have to live with. And then Belize is small and people are victimized, so people don't want to say things. So when they had the I think it was the rollout for the MPA, I thought about going, but I'm like, really, they don't give you a space to really speak the truth. And from going to the public consultation for the Port of Belize, like they give you like so much minutes, and if you are pushing back and you have evidence, they want to lock you. It's not a democratic process. So it's yes, we can say organize, but it's challenging. It doesn't stop me, but it's to tell the truth that it's challenging. And the government, they bank on that. And so we the people, when it's time to vote for people, and I've never voted in this country, I was deported from the United States for voting in their elections, and I may be smiling, but it's a serious offense. To say that it's at this level, Belizean people, that we need to become knowledgeable. Like knowledge is the great liberator, and then you put that knowledge into action as a way of being. Just the knowledge alone is not enough. Be open to be flexible to changing positions, to listening to different perspectives with an open mind. And for me, a big part, Kendall and Vijay, is that I need to know that the people I'm working with are credible. Like both of you were vetted and recommended by someone that I trust. It cannot just be because you are a professional and you publish articles or you write articles. No, that's not it. Like I work best with scholar activists. That's why when I went and that Vijay bring you in, Kendall. When I got and I write, what in a line cook like respect, and then I saw the other work over a period of time that you, and then for Vijay with Indian heritage, he totally was relatable in a different kind of way with me, and I really like at great sacrifice, because this is not easy work. And so UEF Belizean people, African descendants, racialized as Black people, value the work that we're doing, and we really, really appreciate it. I ask you both to take care of your health, take care of yourselves, so that we can be around for a long time, to continue to do this work. It's 4 minutes after 12, but I want to transfer a few more minutes. While I was talking, if you had any other thought, Kendall or Vijay, and it'll be your last words for this portion of the conversation, then I'll lock it off. If there was anything else that came to your mind while I was talking that you were like, oh, I should have said that. Anything that you want to add? Any final 2 cents, Kendall or Vijay, that may have came to your mind while I was talking just now?
Yes, thank you, YaYa. What you raised is really important about organizing. It's not this, all the systems in place are not geared to support that, and even when they are, they try to co-opt it through creating jobs and then destroying the trust, destroying the relations that underlie what organizing is about. It's not about creating a professional class of someone. It's not the NGOification, the NGO creation of mutual aid. That's not what it's about. It's, if you look at some of the biggest mobilizations that have led to significant change through organizing, I'm thinking about the Indian farmers' protest in Punjab last year in 2020 into 2021. They were organized through not only survival but mutual aid on a scale that has not been seen in history, in human history, in terms of numbers. So you have that capacity, and I've seen it in Los Angeles, in certain areas that are undergoing real estate speculation, and you have minority communities living in these areas. People are scraping to get by. They're unable to have time for anything else but work. These people are still realizing that through their connections, through their neighbors, and supporting each other as neighbors is the only thing that gives meaning and purpose. It's not something that can be made into a job. It's not something that creates expertise. It's not something that, oh, there's someone who knows more about this than I do. No, it's about, we are all needing to support each other, and we will do it amidst all the other stuff we have to do, because it's the thing that gives us meaning. You know, the farmers were there on the front lines, even as they have to continue to produce their crops to survive in the midst of drought and climate change. And, you know, so you have this desire to connect with others to resist these systems of oppression, and I think that's really important.
Vijay. Kendall? Did you want to add anything else, Kendall?
Hey, y'all, my Wi-Fi seems to be giving out, so feel free to sort of just sort of cut me off here if it gives out. But I think what I was thinking about, especially when you were talking, YaYa, is about how at Taproot Earth, you know, one of the things that we ask people to commit to is self-transformation. You know, and we like you said, organizing is very difficult. We try to meet people where we're at, but we need people to at least be committed to undoing the systems that got us here. And that means being feminist, being anti-racist, you know, being accommodating for people with disabilities. And I think that it's important to realize that a lot of people start this journey from a different place too, and that a lot of us weren't perfect humans or perfect organizers before we come in. And so I think we need to hold each other accountable. But I think we also need to focus on a lot about sort of like what makes us similar, I guess, in some cases as well. And you know, I think we're stronger because of our differences. And yeah, it's just been a real incredible experience to be here to talk with both of you all. And I think another thing that's occurring to me is that next time it really needs to be in person. You know, I think Vijay and I need to fly down to Belize and be in studio.
Since COVID-19, I haven't been in studio. We've been remote. But you and Vijay are welcome to Belize anytime. UF will host you. Before I say my goodbyes, Jada told me that she was unable to share the Bloomberg link, and I just wanted to read this for Belizeans. Again, this is dated January 11, 2023, corrected January 13, 2023, written by Natasha White. And it says, Wall Street's new ESG, environmental, social governance, moneymaker promises nature conservation with a catch. The tag is, Belize is home to a threatened coral reef and a mountain of sovereign debt. It's become a test case for a new kind of finance that mixes debt relief and environmental protection. I just wanted to read the quote that Marcus Pat gave that was revealing to me. Again, these things are done in secrecy. And this is a quote. The IMF was insisting on a program, end quote, said Marcus Pat, a former Belizean politician, now a consultant, who advised the country on its debt for nature swap. The IMF acts as a lender of last resort to debt-stricken countries, but its strict conditions make many governments balk. For Belize, that would have meant higher taxes, job losses, and lower spending on social and conservation projects, Espat added. That was very revealing for me. Thanks, everyone. Let me thank our security guard at the gate. I believe it may be Shane Flowers. Thank you, Shane. In Creme Radio, because it's simulcasted on our sister radio station. Thank you so much, Larry G, for our patience. I know we went over a little today. Jada Anderson, Master Control Operator at Creme Television. Big respect to Jada. Listen, Jada, our future architect, and she's a visual artist. Salute to Jada's work today. And thanks, Creme TV. The show will repeat at 3:30 this evening, Belize time. You could watch it at your convenience on Creme Television Facebook page. Visit Creme Sunday Review Facebook page. People like Vijay and Kendall, and I'm always happy for these connections, will continue to share information, knowledge with me. We'll share it on Creme Sunday Review Facebook page. You can look forward to both of them coming back on Sunday Review before the year's over. And hopefully we'll see them soon in Belize. Thanks again, Vijay, and thanks again, Kendall. We really value the time you spent with us this morning. Until next Sunday, Belizeans, Only the people want to save the people. One love.
This one goes out to all patriots, all people who love them country bad, love them homeland. We'll never give it up to another nation. This a fi we we da fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. Follow me now. This a fi we da fear. Nobody give it to no Guatemala. This